Yeah, you wanna put that dish in your mouth.
Wish you could slide into my mind and make me mine. Push play rewind. Let's whip outside, and so am I.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Dylan B. Dickerson White. I'm Mr. Trans USA 2022, and I'm here for our pre-sashing interview with Miss Trans Alaska 2023, Rebekka Eshler, who was actually our Miss Congeniality from last year at the 2022 competition and has decided to return this year, which I'm really excited about. And then a little bit in her bio that she shared with me that I didn't know from last time. She is an Army veteran and is president of the Transgender American Veterans Association. So I kind of actually wanted to dig a little bit into that today, but I'm here to have her introduce herself a little bit to you and tell us something that maybe we don't know about her from her bio. You good?
Hi guys, my name is Rebekka Eshler. I am Miss Trans USA. Miss Trans Alaska. Wow,
Speak it into existence.
2023. And I'm speaking into existence. And one thing that you guys didn't know, I've been an EMT for the last 4 years up here in Alaska, helping the homeless people in our local homeless shelters. And then I just moved into being a full-time ER tech and continuing fighting, working with the hospital to upgrade our policies on transgenders patients and two-spirited patients, because we're a native hospital and they had no procedures actually set in place. They were actually really confused. So
that's actually really interesting, and somebody with like medical experience too, and kind of like working in that as a provider and patient at the same time, I kind of get that frustration. But the fact that you're working in like an area where there's a different culture entirely and like two like mixes of cultures, I'm sure like this is kind of a question like the one I've wanted to jump in, like what is it like being trans in Alaska? Because it must be really different.
it's definitely a different experience. Everyone thinks of Alaska as such a red state, but it actually isn't. We're actually a purple state. Um, it's one of the weirdest communities where they support everyone as long as you just leave each other alone. So it's so funny because Pride is such a big event here in Alaska, and drag shows and everything that they come out. I actually just went to a big Our Identity, which is one of our big organizations here for LGBTQ plus and they had over 400 people at their gala this time, and it was just amazing just to see all the support from Republicans there to Democrats, and all just fighting for the rights for trans individuals, because we don't want to see it. We're one of the few states that every time any kind of bill comes up, it gets defeated. I mean, we go door to door. We have built this coalition of where we have made ourselves into the community. We've ate dinner with our neighbors. We go door to door and have go to church. We have a few trans pastors that are out in our community, and it's just we're part of the community, so no one thinks of anything different.
I think you kind of got me in that too, because I feel like I would have been, I did believe like, okay, Alaska, it must be like super hard. It must be like really hard to even find anybody. But I feel like maybe you're like, since you're in Alaska and you're kind of stuck there, you have to like get along with each other. You have to build that community yourself. So maybe it's like the exact opposite of what I was thinking.
Yeah, especially in the bigger cities. I will say the villages out in the north, some of them are a little bit more conservative. But the two-spiritedness of the native culture is very much mixed with transgender individuals. So we're so much well respected that actually we're a little bit held higher standard than actually the LGB in the community. So it's really funny to see when they respect us more, but then say, "Oh no, you can't be gay, but you're okay being trans." It's a different feel actually.
That's really kind of is mind-boggling to me that there's a line that they're drawing there in a way. But I think maybe we should. Would you like to explain what Two Spirit is for people who may not understand that?
So two-spirited in native culture is those that have both spirit in them. So they have a male spirit and a female spirit, and they are able to communicate with both. And most native cultures, it is when they're held to the same standards as like a spiritual chief. Almost, they are very well regarded. They are seen as someone that can see the world on both sides of the aisle, and it's a really cool thing.
Yeah, and then so that's sorry, I just kicked my dog. She's under my feet. But no, it's really interesting to say that having both cultures there, and I mean, probably I would think some parts of like the Southwest of the United States, like, and just that similarity for me, because I'd never, it crossed my mind that that happens in Alaska too. Like, I just think that being like it's just one of the craziest things to me. You don't see people in pageants from Alaska often.
No, we're different. I mean, we did have Miss USA last year. Emma was actually who was for the national pageant one, but that's pretty much it as our claim for any kind of pageants out there.
And I think that just the travel and the intense journey, the flight probably is. How long was it to get there for you last year?
Last year, it took me. It wasn't that bad. I mean, it was about a 5-hour flight. I did direct, so it was nice. Into Chicago.
Oh, yeah.
And then I drove up.
Probably better, actually. Chicago's a much bigger airport.
Yeah, and it's nice. We have two great airlines, Delta and Alaska. So Chicago's a great hub. But like, I go to the East Coast all the time, and that's almost a day trip just to get out there.
Yeah, luckily when we went to even I know LA even was like a 7-hour journey for us. So can't imagine going out there. But if you come out my way, I'm on the East Coast, so
next time I'll have to come out and see you.
Yeah, I want to get all of us to do something over here before nationals at some point, because I think everybody's really excited. If everybody knows, everyone's in our group has been talking about doing events together and working on projects, and I think that's like one of the coolest things ever, because you don't see that again.
It's exciting. I'm excited because I'm not. I'm one of the few ones that aren't a drag performer. I don't do anything, so this is kind of like I love learning from all the others because it's a different side of it. I mean, it's just a new culture for me. Definitely last year I was like, oh wow, and I'm still friends with like Miss Trans Arkansas and those. I talk to them every day, so it's like they're all like, oh, here's what you need to be doing for this. Prepare for this, and I'm like, oh shoot.
Yeah, and like everyone's helping each other out, and like because everyone, even if you've done it before, there's like different levels of like experience, and maybe somebody was doing it in this system and then not in this one. It's completely different. And I think that this year we actually have a lot of people who have not competed in anything before, which is kind of the great point. It's not about drag; it's about us as people. And I think that brings me to like my one question, like, well, maybe two. Related. So what was the first thing, since it's in Milwaukee and a lot of the people were from that area, what drew you to it last year and what made you want to come back?
One thing that drew me last year was I made a promise to myself that I wanted to get more out in the community. I'm out here in Alaska. I started with Tava 2 years before I did the pageant. I was like, I want to be more visible. I want to be more support and show that trans veterans are out there and that we are fighting and we were fighting for our country and we can be out there and do a lot more stuff and that we are coming all different shapes and sizes. I mean, we're just like anyone else. There's no one perfect Barbie box shape doesn't work. So that was the main reason. And I came back because it was just a fun experience. I made so many friends last year. The pool parties, it was just a great time. I wasn't even in the hotel with you guys. I was over at a different hotel because my boss paid for it with his mileage. So I was like, hell yeah. And yeah, free hotel, and I would always be there till like late at night when everyone's going to bed. Like I'm gonna go skedaddle over and then wake up really early to get back over. So
No, that was I think one of my favorite things that I remember the most too, like the pool parties and like people just bringing us random like food and beer and everything. Just I don't know where it came from.
I don't either. I was like, oh, cupcakes for
Like
a
where did these
birthday party?
cupcakes? But no, it was every night, and like I mean, just from a perspective, like you would think you'd be stressed out about the next day, you'd be worried about like what was going on, but I don't think anybody felt that. Like there were maybe one or two, but everyone was just having a good time and like a sort of community retreat, and that's definitely why I wanted to come back no matter what happened either.
Yeah. Yeah, it was definitely a retreat, and it was a fun retreat. Like, yeah, we got a little stressed out. Like on the day of competition, I think I did a few rides to Walmart for some people the night before. It was kind of. I rented a car, so I'm gonna do it
So
again. That again, I
you
love
were that
driving. It's
person,
a
the point person.
hell yeah, it's a stress relief anyway. So I went and drove around Milwaukee at 2 a.m. in the morning, looking around, and I was like, oh, this reminds me of Georgia Benning or Benning, Georgia. I was like, oh. All these buildings look the same, but
Yeah, that's definitely one of those central like mid thing. Like everything looks. It was very flat too, which is
yeah,
like
you guys
weird
can
for
come to Alaska and you can see mountains.
right. Like I grew up in a valley, so I was surrounded by mountains, and just kind of like going to flat places freaks me out.
Right?
Like
Like
it's uncomfortable.
I grew up in California and Oregon, so like I'm used to mountains and stuff. So it's like, and I live in Alaska now, so it's like, oh, where is there? There's no mountains or like really tall trees. What's going on?
Yeah, it's freaky. Like Indiana is kind of like that too. It's just nothing. So I think that like I mentioned like in the bio that and you talked about it briefly here, being involved with the Transgender American Veterans Association, and kind of ask, did you like how was it? Were you out when you served, or was that something that happened after?
So it happened after I got out in 2000, late 2014, early 2015. It was either December or January officially. I don't know what's on my record. I had leave, so I got out a little bit earlier, anyways. And I actually was one of the first people that got married to a guy in my unit. I got flown down to California and free leave and everything. Got married, and they're like, "Oh, this is all great," because it was right after like Jonas Hotel. My unit was so supportive, and then I actually it was hard. And then my friend came out. He was female to male while he was in the Air Force, and it just clicked when he was telling me like what he was feeling. I'm like, oh shit, this is what's been in the back of my head this whole time. Like, oh wow, now I'm not the only one that sees this. And then I started doing my research, and then I found the VA. I actually found out I had VA benefits then. And then I found TAVA, which is Transgender American Veterans Association, nickname, and I got involved, and I'm now their national president somehow.
That's
I got
actually
elected. Right? It's
I think someone was telling me about that there's now ways to transition like through the VA and through the military, even when you're in, and the way they like the process they have of doing it, and it's just kind of amazing. And I'm sure you had a lot of discussions with people on that too.
so now you can almost fully transition while you're in. I think some of the surgeries are still kind of like depending what branch you're in. Like Air Force is probably the easiest to fully transition. Um, but in the veteran side, it's not fully there yet. I mean, we can get hormones. They will sign all the letters. They will provide the pre-care and the aftercare for surgery, but we're still fighting the battle. And that's one of my biggest things that we've been talking about is there's actually a rule change coming up, and it'll be up for public comment, and we need the public support, and it's to remove the ban on gender affirming care surgeries from the VA rules.
That's
So
pretty huge because that's like a lot of people, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but they wait until after to do everything anyway.
Yeah,
So then that's like a huge group of people that's being affected.
and they found out only about 5% of those that are active duty or veterans will actually get surgery. Most of them serve just to prove that they could defend their country and to do the honorable thing. Most people want the hormones. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
natural thing. It makes you feel good. I know for me, I started actually dreaming, so I love my hormones.
It's such a simple thing that people don't like, and I think realize like how much that little thing, that little 1 milliliter or whatever you're doing can change things. And you hit on a really good point too, when we talk about misconceptions and things, that everybody wants the exact same thing, you know, in the community. So that brings me to an interesting question. I know that other than the one I just said, the people always have these crazy misconceptions about the trans community. And other than that one, like, what do you think is another major one that people kind of get wrong about being trans, or like the community?
One of the biggest one is that and I hear here in Alaska sometimes, all the time, on some of like the more conservative areas, is that we are only doing it for the night. We go to work as our other egos, or we're this other character at other things. I'm like, hell no, we're not. Or we are the fetish. Where that's another one that's the big, and that's the hardest part about dating in this world is I'm actually looking for like a relationship. I want to
Yeah.
settle down and be with someone. I don't. All my alarms going off now for other meetings.
It's okay.
You guys can hear them all. I don't. I want a relationship. I don't want to just be someone's fetish, and that's a big misconception. Is that we all want to be someone's sugar mama or be their mistress or whatever they
Yeah.
want.
Or like that we get some sort of like sexual kind of feeling out of just transitioning. I'm like, I'm just doing this to exist.
Yeah, like mentally, I need it.
Yeah. And it's just I think that is a big one. Like people, the reasoning behind, and like that we think, and everybody has their different reasons and everything, for when they choose to, but ultimately like everybody's just trying to live. And I think that you know that being that kind of ties into, you think, a lot of the stuff that's going on with these bills that are sort of conflating like being trans and being a drag performer in general, like, and they're trying to like ban things that are essentially just banning trans people.
Yeah, it's crazy. I've been watching it. I'm like, golly, this is what are we doing in there right now? It's like this is the same thing that was happening back in when African Americans were fighting for their freedom. It's like, how are we going back into history and repeating the same steps with just a different minority? It's like it's just crazy to me, and
Yeah.
it's even crazier because they want to bring in people that shouldn't even be there. It's like, why even mess with the military? Stop doing it. Like the ban on trans was such a big deal because before, I mean, there's been a who was it? One of the Civil War General Pulaski was intersex.
And so
He
there's
was the
already a
founder
precedent.
of yeah, he was the founder of the cavalry unit.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
And
they
just
it's
I think that maybe this is kind of like my conjecture on that. People always think that because there's this feeling of dysphoria or not, that you're going to be so overwhelmed with that you can't do anything or function whatsoever. And I think that being able to separate that out, and people joining the military, like, obviously you're capable of doing your job. Like, if you wouldn't
yeah.
have made it there. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I like to say this. So in the military, we there you always hear the 1%. You're the 1% that actually join out of the United States population. Transgender individuals, we're up to 4% join
Huh.
out of trans individual in the United States. 4% of the population joins the military
Yeah.
at
So
some
four
point.
times the rate in the general population. That's pretty huge.
Yeah, it's like you're
I-
cutting out half your people, and it's like if I can do that, and I also can go into a emergency room trauma and do like 6 different things, still worrying about my how I'm looking to everyone else in that room, I think I'm okay. I can do my job.
Yeah, and like that's one of the things you hit on. Like sometimes like you're more capable because you're putting that all aside. You're putting all of this just to be able to focus, and like the fact that you can do that without a lot of times breaking a sweat. Because in the medical settings, like you can't.
Do my
You have to be
interview.
completely focused on that. Might have cut out a little for a second, but no, okay, it's back. And I think
It's a lot
that's
better
something
now.
the fun part is we have a lot of I think we have several actually veterans competing this year on both sides, and I think that's going to be interesting to maybe get all of you guys together to have some kind of discussion on that. I think that'd be really cool.
Yay. Yeah, we
Yeah,
should.
yeah, set that up through here. So I think that we had a little serious chat there, so maybe something a little more personal and fun. So for me, my thing lately, I've been super stressed. Everybody knows this. So I think about things that I need to do to relax. So I'm as like I like to play video games and dance, and so I was wondering what you like to do to relax.
I work. I mean, no, I'm kidding. Lately, so I've actually been going to broom. This is so I don't know. It's a Midwestern thing too. I guess it's called broom ball.
I
Like
know what RuPaul is. Yeah.
so, every Friday there's a league here in Anchorage, and I go and play in the league. I go play. It's just a fun thing to do, and someday down there it's a beer league, so we're drinking and playing, and somehow now I'm going to be in the women's rugby league up here too. They're like, I'm like, oh boy.
Just getting into all this thing. I'm like that too. I love doing like physical things, but it's finding friends that want to like actually do them. It's the hard part. Um, but I think broom ball. It's for other people. It's kind of like a shoe hockey thing with a broom and a big like wiffle ball sort of thing, right? Like
Yeah, it's like, well, it's not. We use a little like rubber basketball, but small,
yeah,
and
okay.
then use a broom handle, and then you're on ice. So we call it like a mixture of lacrosse, soccer, and hockey
Somebody.
mixture.
This is exactly why somebody like it's a like a beer league because somebody was drinking like they just had a bunch of random stuff and decided to go walk on the ice. That's probably
Yeah.
like
Oh yeah. And it's always funny because we get there and the hockey players, because Alaska's a hockey state. I
oh
don't
yeah.
know. And they're always like, "What are you guys playing?" And they all get, and then they're like, "Oh shoot!" And then they come all and join us, and they're like all serious, and then I like push them to the ground, and they're like, "What the F are you doing?"
You're like, no, we take ours seriously too.
Yeah, yeah,
This is so I have to ask too, is curling like a big thing in Alaska?
it is.
Okay.
Um, I've been trying to get in to learn how to curl for the past 3 years, and all the beginning classes are full for
I
the
just,
whole year already.
that's crazy. I mean, I've always wanted to try it, even though people always tell me it looks like really dumb. It's like, it seems like one of those things that you just get into for no reason. Like,
It's a very big strategy game. Like we had, so they play it in elementary school and stuff that here all the time during the snow season because they play on ice. So we have jamboree days for our elementary school. So in 2 weeks, it's actually our jamboree. So they do a big curling ring, and that's the only time I get to play is like with the kids, and it's so much strategy, and it's like you gotta think about when you want to broom, and then the ice is actually like pebbled, so it's not flat.
I did not know that.
Yeah,
So
because
you
that's
have
why
more-
they sweep it to make it flatter, so that the rock and the pebble, it's to help it like stop, and you're supposed to sweep to make it help it curve and stuff. I don't.
and so between you when you speed up and when you slow down, in which direction you go?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I definitely need to try this.
It looks fun.
Yeah.
We could go to the Olympics. It's like the easiest sport to go to the Olympics right now.
I feel like I saw like a meme about that. It was like the U.S. men's curling team looks like a bunch of guys who just wanted to get away from their wives for the weekend or something like that.
They were here in Anchorage the other day, and literally they all have beers because they had show pictures from there at the curling rink, and they were just drinking and playing. I'm like, perfect sport.
That's right. They're like bowling, when people make so much money with that, and it's one of those sports that I feel like if you're drinking, you're doing better.
Right? I mean, I do way better at darts when I'm drunk than not.
It's a fluid motion.
It's like,
This is like, see, I had this printed out, some of the extra questions and everything, but my own handwriting is failing me today. So I think that, now that we did that, I have another kind of silly sort of question.
okay.
Not really silly, but I always ask this because I'm curious. And you can't say like something that you need. So if I gave you like $10,000 to blow on something completely frivolous and fun and silly, what would it be?
Damn, really? 10,000?
Yeah.
That's
'Cause
so hard. I'm like so this is so me. I'm not the one that goes blow money. I'm the type that goes gives people money. So it's like really hard. If anything, I would say probably a vacation to New Zealand, just because I want to go visit and I have friends down there. That's probably the biggest thing. If not that, it would definitely sound weird, but I would buy a big pool of Skittles.
like just Skittles.
Just Skittles. They're my favorite candy. So
I feel like now I need to figure out how many Skittles you can buy with $10,000. We do some math to figure this out.
well, in Alaska, it's $2 a pack. So
So we're counting skin, how much room they take. It's some like Fermi math. I think is the method that's. I'm
that's
gonna
too
say,
much work.
yeah. That's what they pay other people to do.
Yeah.
So I think that this is kind of like we're closing out here, and I have a couple sort of more fun things. I think that since we talked about it, it kind of hit on it a little bit earlier. As somebody who is not like within the drag community, but you're seeing all of these bills come up against, drag in general or like bathroom bill, and you're seeing so many things, and even in the last several years, it keeps increasing the number year after year. So do you have like how do you think that you would go about addressing that? Like if you were to win and have to make a statement, like what would be your first step kind of getting there?
I think the biggest thing is, and this is something we're trying to do with Habit, is the education portion. Is showing why these bills are, one, ridiculous, and two, why our community as a whole isn't what they're portraying, and why we should be supporting these, and how much good we're actually doing in these. Because I mean, most of these drags performance, they actually do a lot of good charity work. I mean, I know ours up here, we do ARF a lot, which is one of our rescues, and it just raises so much money for them every year. It's one of their biggest donations. And if we got rid of that, I mean, they would literally go out of business.
Yeah,
And
it's kind of, I think that people to focus on that the way I kind of describe it is, just like there are some drag shows, yes, that are just for adults, there are some movies and music that are just for adults.
Yeah.
And like it's going to be like picking and choosing. And I think that you're absolutely right. Education is one of the only ways, and I think that's also why you probably see a lot of people attacking being able to educate people. There are bills on that side too, about talking about being trans in school, and I think that's I know that personally. Like, I'm glad to hear that answer because I think over the next year we're all going to have a fight.
Yeah, I think we're already seeing it, and it's something we're preparing for. I can tell you that there's a lot of organizations, because I mean with a lot of different LGBT organizations and veteran organizations, because we're not alone. I mean, I will tell you the veteran community is very concerned about these bills and about the trans community in a whole, because we are a part of that space too. We're all intersect, and they are very worried because I mean that's where they find people. I mean, I know recruiters that will go to drag shows or on campus will attend drag shows just so that they can give out cards and stuff to recruit people, because it's a place where people feel safe. I mean, that's a big thing. I know I spoke with SVA, Student Veterans of America, at their NatCon back in beginning of January at their conference about transgender spaces. And my biggest thing was, and it was my challenge for every chapter leader that was there, was for them to make their chapters a safe spot for all LGBT, not just veterans, but any member. If there was not a safe spot for LGBT on campus, may you guys be the start of it, because that's the only way something's going to change.
That's actually kind of incredible because, like, you are the only ones that have the capability of having an open door right now. So make sure it's open. Like that's huge. And I think that we could go on, and I definitely want to keep talking with the group of you guys about that, the veterans issues, and the topic, in a separate chat. But we are hitting our 30-minute mark. So the question that I always like to end with, and we kind of talked about some of the things, what you had planned on doing, should you win the title this year, and like what you're already doing. And like, I know that we're kind of in the same thing. We always talk about the things that we do and we do and we do for the community and all the projects we have. But if, and it may be the same answer as last year, but if you could take away something from the experience this year, like personally for you, what would you like that to be?
It's building the sisterhood again. I mean, I can't wait because I don't think there's that many returning people this year from last year.
Just a handful, I think, or like waiting, yeah.
I know there's a couple waiting. I know there's a couple waiting to see if they are also doing some other pageants where it might conflict. So we're just they're playing the waiting game. So it's to build that true. And there's a lot more of us this year. And that's another exciting thing that we're actually going to be fulfilled. And also, I'm going to freaking be able to walk in heels this year, because last year I was horrible at heels and I've been training. So
it's hard. Like, you do the practice with the like in all around the house and just kind of like,
yes. And then I've done galas and I walked in the White House with heels. And
oh wow, that's that. I mean, you pretty much, if you walk in the White House and you wear heels, like this should be nothing. Like, like that's amazing. And like, you're right. And I think that's really fun to hear from everybody. Like most people just, they want to keep building and keep us growing and just hang out and more, finding the hotel. Hopefully their pool area is big enough, because it's a different hotel, right?
Is it?
We're looking at a few different ones right now, but I think it's going to be a little bit closer to the venue.
Nice.
So that's good. But it has to be big enough. That's so number one. But no, I'm really excited that you're back and that we're all going to get to hang out a bit more and kind of focus a lot on not just our on-stage stuff, but being able to connect with everyone around the country, and just the visibility that everybody here has been putting out all year. Like I'm here for it, so I can't wait.
Yeah, I'm excited to be back. It's gonna be fun. And I'm excited for this year. I mean, there's a lot of more year left before nationals. So
we got 8 months, 10 months, 8 months, yeah,
something like that. I know I got stuff in DC happening. I know Tava it's our 20-year anniversary this year, so we would love for you guys to come out and be part of it. I'll be sending you guys an email later. And we're looking to build a community. I know as a whole, I'm looking to build so many interconnections, because that's the only way, truly, if we're ever going to stop fighting each other, and all of us, I'm saying that's the whole country fighting each other, it's to build these intersections and to show that you can be not just one little box, you can be your multiple boxes. So.
Yeah, you want to put that dish in your mouth.
Reason why I'm doing this year's Miss Trans USA pageant is because I want to make sure that we are honoring the trans veterans and trans service members that have represented this great country. Back in the day when President Trump was president, we saw in the news so much turmoil that was brought. The trans ban in the military that kicked out many trans service members, the lack of access to certain health care that trans veterans needed. That was all appealed back when Biden became president, and truthfully, it hasn't. Lately, we've all seen that trans youth sports and other trans youth topics have been in the media, but really the promises that were kept and promises that were made by the current White House and other policymakers haven't been honored, and the trans veterans and trans service members are still lacking the important care and resources that they are needed to make sure they can live happy and quality life that they deserve because they serve this great nation. So that is why I'm here representing the great state of Alaska in this year's Miss Trans USA pageant. Thank you.
Yeah, you wanna put that dish in your mouth.